Speaking of angry fans, there were a lot of them in Happy Valley, not so Happy Valley on Saturday. Penn State does not score an offensive touchdown against Ohio State, a 20-13 loss. They lost last year 20-12, did score an offensive touchdown. James Franklin, 1-10 against Ohio State, 1-13 against top 5 teams. A lot of talk, a lot of criticism about the Ohio State offensive line, and I actually agree with Ryan Day. He talked about it a lot immediately in postgame, that for them to get the ball at the 1 yard line after that goal line stop and then just salt the game away by moving people, that's the kind of stuff that offensive coordinators, offensive line coaches like go to bed dreaming of at night. And that was really, really impressive in that spot where Penn State's got a really salty front and they knew they wanted to run and they still salted away. Big picture, Chris, what did you take away from this and specifically Penn State's offense, where it's been a lot better this year and then in the moment where they needed it, somehow worse?
Yeah, we'll give Ohio State their flowers here in a minute, but the story of this game is Penn State coming up short again.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, you look at this team, the wide receivers had 5 targets, and I think maybe like 3 catches. Like, that is just not a serious program.
It's not 1984, guys.
If you're trying to contend for a national championship and you don't have any receivers, like, what are you doing? How did Penn State not get anybody explosive in the portal? They actually lost a guy to Auburn, I think, in the portal. Like,
if we want to count Dante Cephas too, they lost him to K-State. But
like Tyler Warren's great. He's really fun. He can't be your only weapon in the passing game because otherwise they are going to key on him, which is what happened a lot in this game. I don't know. And Drew Aller was like okay, but again, like last year, I don't know if guys are really getting open downfield much at all. And if he has nobody to throw to, like, then what is he going to do? And so for Penn State, like, this is your ceiling if you're not going to have explosive guys in the passing game. You're not going to have wide receivers that are any good and that you trust. And you can bring in Andy Kolnicki and he can do a lot of good stuff, but you got to have some guys if you want to beat one of the most talented teams in the country. And year in and year out, they just do not have those guys.
That goal line stand late, it's not as simple as just saying that won the game or lost the game. But it kind of lost the game for Penn State, kind of won the game. Damien, what did you take away from that when you were watching it?
Well, I'm going to combine what both of you said. That goal line stand at the end of the game lost them the game. But the ultimate story is they had 2 turnovers within the 10-yard line. 2 turnovers.
Three red zone trips, 3 points.
Now, think about it this way, right? Because I was taught to think of each possession in terms of math, right? So let's say the turnover with the interception in the end zone in the first half, right before halftime. Let's say they kick a field goal right there, right? That's 3 points. And let's say somehow they find a way on that 4th and goal or, first and goal to go inside the 5. They score right there. That's 10 points. They lost by 7. You win the game. So in my eyes, that's the story of how they lost. And Chris, to your point, they don't have guys. They don't have these explosive playmakers at the receiver position. I'm really starting to question the running back position as well because Nick Singleton, somehow Tyler Warren was the leading rusher in this game. But it's your job as an offensive coordinator, if you're Andy Kotelnicki, to assess the talent that you have and find a way. And don't tell me that you're not creative enough, because look at some of the plays that he's come up with during the season. Like, look at some of the stuff that he's done with this offense. And then you're telling me that you can't get creative enough to somehow just free some guys up. I mean, Chris, nobody was open all game. I couldn't tell if guys just couldn't win versus man-to-man coverage. They just couldn't find the right zones. If they were calling man beaters versus zone coverage or zone beaters versus man coverage, like, just nobody was open. And then to Chris's point also that Tyler Warren can't be your only guy. Well, the reality is he is your only guy. So you have to force feed him the ball. And they just did not until that last drive, their last possession in the 4th quarter, where they got down to like the 1 yard line. They made 0 point of emphasis to get him the ball. And this is a guy that's got 17 targets in a crucial game against USC at the beginning of the season. He didn't have anywhere near the amount of attention that he deserved to get as far as trying to get him the ball. And then even on the last drive, he got them all the way down there. They finally was like, oh, wait, by the way, we have a superstar tight end who can ultimately drive us all the way down the field, whether we hand him the ball, whether we throw it to him. Like, to me, why they weren't doing this the whole game, I don't know. But he gets them all the way down there, and at no point in 4 plays he touches the ball. It didn't make any sense to me. And all of that, to me, falls on Andy Kotelnicki and the offensive coaching staff, because they just did not get these guys in a position to win.
Chris, we need to talk about some more fans, because Penn State fans, sounds like they booed Penn State players during the alma mater. Some of the players left the field early. We had a fan yelling at James Franklin as he came off the field. James Franklin confronted him.
Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey before the game. What are you doing, dude? Come on, man. That was weak. Anyway, and then you got fans booing them as they go in the tunnel. Chris, what did you make of the fan response to Penn State?
I mean, I'm fine with the booing. You lost the game. It's the game you always lose. It is what it is. And players are getting paid now, so I feel less bad about that. If they boo, they boo.
I get the anger.
Yeah, the kid, I couldn't tell how old he was, confronting James Franklin and just saying something. And James Franklin turns to him and says, "What's your name?" And the guy just kind of leaves. He just kind of
we call that
up
a turtle
leaves.
shell is what that is.
Yeah.
He tucked and run.
And so,
speaking of saying it with your chest, sometimes you can say it in a whisper.
Yeah, for a coach, you shouldn't be doing that. I remember Tommy Tuberville did it once. I remember Matt Campbell did it. I want to say a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It's never a good look. However, James Franklin did get the upper hand there, and it was kind of funny to see the fan just kind of back away after that, because, in society, we don't really have shame anymore. We don't really have confrontations anymore. And so it's interesting when someone makes a comment that it's not just saying something on Twitter, into the void. When you say it to someone's face and they talk back to you, a lot of people don't know how to handle that these days.
In Penn State, it seems like we have an epidemic of loud as a motorbike wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, is what I'm told. So, guys, between Jason Kelsey and James Franklin, come on now, guys.
Barking
Chris,
up the wrong trees.
For sure. What is the impact of this in the Athletic 134?
I've got Ohio State moving up from number 5 to number 3. This was the big win they just didn't have on their resume, and now they do. And really got to credit Ohio State for this. They didn't play great. And there were points in this game when you're thinking Ohio State should be up a lot more than they are. You have the pick six. You have Will Howard fumbling out of the end zone for a touchback on one. You have Will Howard missing some open guys downfield. And yet, Chip Kelly schemed enough things open to get guys open for some touchdowns. I think they had 2 touchdowns on basically the same play. Mm-hmm. And then in the fourth quarter, especially that final drive, they were able to run the ball when they needed to run the ball. That was the thing they have not been able to do this year, previous years. It's been a big problem. Can they salt the game away and run the clock? And they had 2 drives in the fourth quarter of over 5 minutes, basically salted that game away. And so huge props to Ohio State's offensive line for stepping up after getting crapped on for a week by a lot of people.
For real.
You saw bits of the Ohio State that I had as my preseason number 1, the team you can think can win the national championship. I don't know if Will Howard is still that guy to get you there, but at the same time, I don't know if anybody in the country is all that dominant. Number 1 is Oregon, and Ohio State was an OPI away from beating them. So, they're in that mix, and I think this team can win the national championship. You're going to have to get more. Will Howard can't make as many mistakes, but he did make enough plays at the end to win them the game.
And I think, too, big picture, to speak to your rankings, and obviously we're looking ahead to the CFP rankings on Tuesday. I'm really jazzed for that on Tuesday. I'm legitimately excited. And if you hate the 12-team playoff, this is the kind of game that fuels that, I think. Yep. Because in a lot of other seasons, we've seen it so many times before, this is kind of the death sentence for Penn State's season. And instead, it's kind of like a semicolon, sort of. You lose this game if you're Penn State. You're blocked out probably of the Big Ten title game. Michigan's not what it has been, obviously, in recent years, but it's going to be tough for you to get there. Now, it doesn't really matter if you're in the Big Ten title game. I think Penn State probably wins out. They don't have to face Oregon or Indiana. They're probably going to win out. They're probably going to get in the playoff. And so, on that hand, as frustrating as Saturday was for Penn State fans, they're going to get another shot to redefine how this season is remembered in the playoff. If you crap out in the first game in the playoff, especially if you do it at home, it's going to be bad. But if you win a game, win 2 games in the playoff, I think it redefines how the season is. And some people like that. Some people don't like that. I personally am a fan. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the playoff, in the same way that the NCAA tournament in basketball reshapes how a lot of seasons are viewed. And I think Penn State's really going to be a test case for that, kind of like we all sort of thought coming in.
And this also brings up the question, like, what is the ceiling of Penn State? I think that's the question we have right now. 1-10 against Ohio State, James Franklin is. And that one win, it took a blocked field goal thing to win you the game. So, like, if Penn State's ceiling is top 7 team, host a playoff game every year, like, a lot of teams would kill to be there. But can Penn State be any better? You have Drew Aller, the 5-star quarterback. He hasn't lived up to the hype. You don't have a great recruiting base. You're not great in NIL and facilities. Like, James Franklin has complained about that a little bit. But
Should be, just for the record.
So, like, what is Penn State's ceiling? Should this be a top 5, top 3 program that is competing for the national championship? Or should it just be a top 10 program? Because if it's just a top 10 program, they're there.
Yeah.
And this is the ceiling that they're at.